Hi everyone, it's Deneen and welcome to my June Traveler's Notebook Monthly Roundup. So here's my little notebook with May in it, and I'm going to add the next month, which is June. And I'm going to use these stamps, not sure which one, but I will definitely use them. And I know I'm going to use some of these chipboard shapes from the June kit as well. I've typed up my journaling on this 4x6 card, and I've also typed up some journaling on the June 3.75 by 8 1/4 page. This is the transparency that I have actually printed out on paper, and I have this from Citrus Twist Kits. I'm going to use this as an insert. Love these little Instax sized pockets. Here are some smaller photos I'll be adding, and I have some full page photos here that I'm going to be putting inside of the June pages as well. And then a photo collage that's going to span 2 pages together. I've also gone ahead and printed on a transparency, some journaling to go over one of the full page photos. So let's get started here. Let's open this up and begin cutting up some of these photos. The first spread or the first page is going to be about the last few days of school. And I did a complete layout recently on all of the last couple of days of school. So I just kind of want to get a couple photos in here. And so this is going to be placed on the left side, and this will be an insert that we will adhere underneath that photo. So you'll see that I use the little tool to kind of bend it so that it folds nicely into the book. And I will use some score tape in order to add that to the left page, being careful so that it does flip, closed, and open nicely. Always being careful of that. If you've seen my other videos, it's something that I'm very particular about. So once I get that insert in, I will then take this full page photo and place it on the left page over the insert. And I'm going to use a little bit more score tape to hold it in there nicely. Trim the edges, and there you have the first page. Then we move on to the right-hand side. I have this photo. I know if you look at it, you're going to say, wow, the colors on that are off. They're not off. That is the smoke from the Canadian wildfires, and I needed to document that. So that picture is going to go on the right side. I cut the vellum down. I think I called it a transparency. It is vellum. I cut that down, and I'm going to use a fastener, a metal fastener, to adhere that or hold that onto that full page photo. Something to note here, you're going to see coming up. Before you add the metal fastener, if you're going to use one of these, you're going to want to do your corner rounder because it will not be able to work with the fastener in place. So you'll see I add the photo with the vellum into my little notebook, and then I think I am going to trim the corners, and I realize that's not going to happen. So if you do decide to get these metal fasteners and use them, you're going to want to take note. Make sure that the corners are rounded beforehand. And here you're going to see that I had to pull up the photo in order to round the corners. So again, a little bump in the road, not that much of a big deal, but just a little warning. Learn from my little mistakes, right? So I will embellish a little bit more later. Flipping open to the next spread, this is going to be the collage. And this is a collage of 6 photos. And I pulled them into a canvas in Photoshop Elements, resized them to fit nicely so that 3 photos fit on each side. And I am going to use that 4x6 journal card with the wonky circles in order to kind of document a little bit about each one of these photos. And so once I get these in here nicely, you'll see a little trimming is necessary at times. I want the pages to open and close nicely. Sometimes I try to get as close to the center or as close to the middle there with the seam as possible. And then what ends up happening is it impedes the pages from opening and closing nicely. So I'm kind of careful there. You'll see I'm moving things around and everything, getting them in a way that it's going to be good to open and close. I'll use you'll see my circle punches there holding down that set of pages. My book already is starting to get a little chunky with only this being the 2nd month. I'm going to cut these up, and I will fussy cut each one of these wonky circles out by hand. so that I can figure out where I want to place them on my photos. I really didn't do a lot of thought on this ahead of time, and I probably should have. I knew that I wanted some of these wonky circles to be hanging off the pages, and I wanted some of the writing to only fill a part of the circle. I just wasn't quite sure where I was going to place them, and I probably should have thought about that a little bit before I went ahead and typed in Photoshop Elements on the circles, but it is what it is. So I end up having to kind of just adjust my sails, right? Figure out, where will I put these circles so I'm not hiding people's faces. A couple of them end up being in places where they're pretty close to the faces of other people. This one is a perfect example. Wasn't very happy with that, but again, like I said, I am probably the only person who will really take note of those things, and I figure the best thing to do is just to keep moving forward, noting that in the future when I'm doing this, I should be a little more conscious ahead of time. So now you'll see I'm kind of cutting these up before I adhere them to place them down and see where do I want them. Where will they look best? And I kind of do a little bit of moving here, there, and everywhere. And after I'm done, I figure out that they do have places where they look better than others. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere those down as well. So that's it for that one. I will do a little bit more embellishing after I am done with this last spread, which is going to have this June roundup card. That's what I call these. And again, the card is a little bit shorter than the actual page of the notebook. I had considered taking it to the edge of the page, but then I decided that I was going to just trim off. I would put it as close to the middle as I could, and then I would you'll see here, a piece of glass, going to get my metal ruler, and I'm going to trim off the edge. And I kind of like that that's just a 1/4 of an inch shorter than everything else. It just, I don't know, it gives a little diversity and it makes me happy. In this part here, I am going to decide to use the this and that stamp. And since I didn't do a lot of thinking ahead of time, you're going to see here, I'm pulling out some of my Distress Oxide inks that perhaps could match with that checkerboard pattern that will be on the opposite page. So again, just testing these out. Some of them are lighter than others. They don't need to be exact, but I do want to get as close as I can to the color scheme. And I am going to use this stamp between each of those individual paragraphs on that June page. So I decide that I'm going to go ahead and pick one of those blues, and I'm going to go ahead and just do that stamping between those paragraphs. I'm not really happy with the way the stamping turned out this time. I read something online about priming your stamps before you use them. I've never done that before. I've never had to do that. But the way the ink was sticking to these stamps this time, I really didn't like it. It was kind of blotchy. But since I had already started, I decided I would just keep going and then do a little bit of research. What should I do to my acrylic stamps before I go ahead and start stamping with them? Again, I've never had to do that, but it looks like there may be some issues here. Perhaps it's my ink, but the ink was relatively new, so I don't know. We'll see. I'll figure that out later. Trimming up this page here, I am going to use that to be the background for the left-hand side page for this spread. Do a little bit of trimming there. I'm not always perfect in my placement. Again, most people probably would not even notice. So I will cut this down to be able to be the background for that page. Using permanent adhesive, I will get that down there. And if you saw earlier, I had little rectangular shaped photos that I am going to put on this page. And I think there are 6 of them. So those just need to be trimmed up, and I will trim them so that they have a little bit of a white border on them. I like to do that. And so I'm just kind of eyeballing it here, right? What looks best. There's no measurement. I have no idea what the border size is, but you'll see that for one of them, I make a little bit of a mistake and I cut too much of the white off the one side. And so instead of reprinting that, I just go ahead and grab a piece of that trimmed photo paper, and I just kind of adhere it to that side again, if it makes any sense. You'll see that coming up here. It's that photo of me and my boyfriend in the bottom left there. So the right side of that photo is just, it's the right side, the white border is just a little bit too short for me. So I think this is the part here, you'll see me tapping my fingers. I grab that little tiny piece of photo paper and I just adhere it to the back and remove the adhesive that kind of was coming out. And most people would not even notice that I did that. And then I'll continue on with putting my photos into the places that I want them. All right, after I get done with this, I am going to be done, and then I will show you some of the photos that I took of everything once I am completely done adding the embellishments. So here I'm just kind of finishing things up and showing you this is how this flips open, this flips up, there's my collage. Okay, I added some chipboard to the photo on the left, actually two pieces, one on top of the other, and an open stamp on a tab so people know to open that up. A couple pieces of chipboard here on the inside, and then this is what the back side looks like. And then, of course, when you do fold that back together, this is what it looks like when it's still folded. Put a chipboard and a stamp on my vellum. And when you flip that up, you can look at the photo underneath. To this page here with my wonky circles, I just added a tiny star by each of the wonky circles. And then here I added some circle numbers. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I am always happy to answer. Thank you so much for watching and playing along, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great day.